Academica Media. From Academica Media Studios in Miami, Florida, it's Big Ideas in Education, a weekly recap of inspiration and innovation in your schools.
Hello, education lovers. Thrilled as always to have you joining us on this week's installment of Big Ideas in Education. I'm Ryan Kairalla from Doral College, joined by Dr. Sarah Boulos-Fye from Somerset Academy Schools. Hi, Sarah. Why are you so smiley?
I'm laughing because as you're introducing me, something is happening and the lighting keeps changing. And folks, to give you a little bit of context for today's recording, Ryan and I have just been having an embarrassing amount of technical difficulties getting on with you today. So I have to laugh. It's one of those, like, you have to laugh.
But we made it.
But we're here. We'll see for how long.
Yeah. For now, for the time being, we are here with all of our education friends, and we could not be happier. And, Sarah, why don't you get us started this week?
Just to add to the funny technical difficulties, you know, a little bit of reality versus what you hear on the podcast. We're actually recording right after Thanksgiving. So happy holidays to everyone, but you're not going to be hearing this until much later because, again, glitches and
studio
silliness.
Magic.
And yes, exactly. So welcome to all of you. So excited to have everyone with us. It is a hard-fought battle to get to you sometimes. So that was a little bit of comedy I think we needed. So yeah, I'm sure we all have fond memories as a younger student of seeing our teachers roll in a cart with a giant television on it, hooked up to a DVD player, or if you're even older, maybe a VHS player. And we all knew what we were doing that day. Probably not a whole lot, right? And fast forward to our own experiences. I know my own experience as a classroom teacher, that just because it wasn't, the roll cart, and just because I was using a screen or a streaming video, did not mean that I was doing much better instructionally than the teachers that I had back in the day. So this headline really caught my attention when I was just kind of scrolling through some things online. Pressing play isn't a teaching strategy. Yeah. Okay. You have my attention.
Yeah.
Reed Dixon is the program manager for faculty development at Pima Community College, where he teaches courses for faculty in online pedagogy, instructional design, and educational technology. And in his article, he challenges us as educators to think about how we're preparing and presenting lessons that include video, and provide some resources to improve our instruction. First, he brings up the idea of paratext, a word that my computer kept trying to autocorrect and did not believe was a I had to type it about 10 times and I still have the red squigglies. But it's a term generally used for teaching poetry that encourages the reader to look beyond the actual physical text to what is around it. What information can we get from the author, the context, etc.? So what does that have to do with the media? What kind of paratext surrounds the media we present in the classroom? He breaks it down into 3 categories: introductory paratext, closing paratext, and body paratext. And if you're an English teacher like myself, or if you've ever taught reading, you can think of, what do we introduce, what do we close, and then what's in the main body of the text. In the introductory, he talks about something called technical paratext. And I'm going to share something that really stood out to me about this, because the entire article, it's a little bit of a deeper dive and it's a fantastic learning experience to read through it. So I'm just going to focus on this technical paratext. He says, these days, students have plenty of technical tools to shape their viewing experience, including running a video at double speed or greater. So it can be helpful for teachers to talk about what kind of viewing they expect for a given assignment, and whether it's okay to skim or even skip parts of a video. I encourage educators to talk about the video's length, title, linked source, and a summary of any connected activities we expect students to complete. I thought this was a really great point and something that I don't always think about when introducing media. And some other elements of this include how to frame the video with questions and demonstrate note taking so students can engage more meaningfully with the video. Asking students to observe for bias or errors in problem solving, for example. For me, I think it was a great call to action to critically review how I'm using media as an educator, not just in a physical classroom, but especially online learning. I feel like, virtual learning includes a lot of watch and respond to this video. And I wonder, how are we using it? How are we framing it? And are we paying attention to this paratext, right? What's outside of the video, or what tools students may be using to access that video that can make it a bit more not just relatable or not just engageable, right? I'm going to make that a word day.
That'll also give you the red squiggly line on Microsoft
That'll give me
Word.
the red squiggly, yeah. But, what are we doing to make it a little bit more meaningful to them, in the sense that I know, and listen, I'm guilty of it, so I'm not calling anybody out here without putting myself under the bus, but I know I've made the whole all right, well, we're going to do a Venn diagram on Romeo and Juliet, and then the Claire Danes and Leonardo DiCaprio, Romeo and Juliet, right? And how is it different than the actual play that we read? That it's really not giving students tools to really critically engage with it. And I want to challenge all of us. How much media are we consuming? Even myself. I'm constantly watching videos, whether it's YouTube or TikTok or whatever it is. How am I critically engaging with those? And am I using what I do as a learner and a thinker to make sure that that happens in the classroom for my students?
That's really terrific insight, Sarah. And when you talk to me about paratext and the idea of critically engaging with video media that you're showing your students, I can't help but hear that, and also hear about what I've also been told is an important aspect of showing videos in class, which is chunking, right? We talk about chunking
absolutely.
in the direct instruction context. We rarely tell teachers it's a good idea to just lecture for an hour straight. You break up the lesson into small chunks. I think video is the same way. I think video tends to be a more effective instructional tool when you're chunking the video up into smaller bits and allowing analysis for each portion, rather than just running the whole video straight through and giving the students a Venn diagram at the end. When I do professional development on copyright law, I actually impart this to teachers, because the only thing that allows movies and films to be copyright safe when you're using them in the classroom is you have to be able to tie it to a clear pedagogical purpose. I often counsel principals, don't let your teachers just play movies that are completely frivolous and don't have instructional purpose. Like, oh, AP exams are over, let's watch a Disney movie or something. That isn't attached to any sort of educational context, because that tends to be copyright questionable. And so the more that you can make it educational, the more that you're on solid legal as well as educational footing. And this goes doubly in the online context, because whereas in the copyright world, you are technically allowed to play a movie all the way through in a self-contained physical classroom without violating copyright law, in an online class, the rules are more strict. The law only lets you use as much video as you need to accomplish whatever the pedagogical purpose is. So in the online world, chunking short video clips is actually the requirement. And so I think whether we are online or in the physical space, shorter video clips that allow you to critically engage and get into the paratext of the video and to really understand the context is ultimately a better way to go instructionally.
So I want to take this out of my own body and pretend that I'm coaching myself and you as an educator, right? And so let's say you want to show a video. You saw something online and you were like, this is fantastic, I want to share it with my kids. So I would probably, as a coach, ask, what is it about that you think is really critical for your students, right? What message do you want your students to get from that? What does it tie into you have been teaching that you think this is going to augment what I've been doing in the classroom? So that would be my first question. And when we get to that answer, I might ask, okay, so what parts of this video are doing that? Because usually it's not the entirety of it. Even if it's a shorter clip, even if it's 7 minutes long, which is relatively short if we're talking about an entire class period, is all of those 7 minutes, Rich, you really want, and I know we're real guilty of this in PD too, right? There's like a TED Talk or a little TEDx that we want to share a clip from. 7 minutes is a really long time. Even 1 minute is a really long time. Is the entirety of that video going to connect? And I know that what we're essentially doing is becoming almost like a little mini director, right? We're editing. We're doing this on like director's cut of that clip to say, this is what I really want the students to engage in. And then I had another thought as I was reading this and I was prepping for this. Maybe, and I don't want to, ruffle too many feathers, maybe we should not be watching videos as a group at all. I'm thinking about, how do I best engage with media? It is rarely with 15 or 27 other people around me. It's me with my headphones on, looking at it, playing subtitles usually, and it might be at 1.5 speed, depending if it's something that I'm learning because I need it for work, or if it's something I'm just enjoying, or if it's a really interesting documentary that has caught my attention. And I want us to think a little bit about, how do we consume media and how do our students consume media? What if we were to give a survey and ask them, how do you best engage with this? If it's something that's interesting to you, or if it's something that's less interesting to you, would you rather me put like time codes and say, just go to this time code and I need you to know this or that? Or do you want to watch it all the way through one time on like 2 times speed, get the general idea, and then watch it again, and then give me, some time codes that you thought were important? Make it an assignment even. So we're going to watch this in class. I want you to watch it for homework first and tell me what is the most important part that I need to play in class.
So maybe almost like a flipped classroom kind of thing.
Little bit, right. Just some ideas that ran through my head as I was reading this article, because I thought, how would it be more meaningful for me as a learner? And I can tell you, it's not sitting in a room with 30 people and being told to fill out a Venn diagram.
I think that's right. Because by flipping it, by having the video viewing experience take place in a situation where the student is most comfortable, allowing the student to consume the content the way they like to consume the content, which is rarely at a wooden desk with 20 of their classmates all watching it at the same time, you put the student in a better position where they can sort of critically wrestle with the video a lot more easily than they otherwise would have. And they can listen to it at a faster speed. They can listen to it with subtitles if they want. And they can do what you most often want a student to do if you really want them to understand the video. They can go back and look at it again. Oh, now that I've seen the end again, let me go back to the beginning because I think we have more context than before. Maybe I want to slow down so I can take some notes, really understand it. And then when I come into the classroom, I am armed and equipped to spend the whole class period engaged in a thoughtful discussion or whatever
Absolutely.
my teacher wants me to do with the video because
Or
I've
maybe
already
even a
done
video
the video
response.
viewing. Yeah.
The way, I could imagine my students today, we did not have TikTok when I was fully in the classroom, but I could imagine my students today like, okay, I'm going to duet with this video and tell you all the reasons why this part isn't important and this part is, right? I could see that being a fantastic learning activity for them.
That would be cool. We're on the cutting edge. I like that. Stitch and duet videos.
What can I say, right?
What a cool way to demonstrate mastery of a concept. Love it.
All right. I know you have some cutting edge right now content you want to share.
Yeah, let's stay in kind of the social media universe here. Let's talk about Twitter, a platform that I value a lot and I use a lot, and Academica Media uses it. You can follow us at Academica Media on Twitter and follow Sarah at Read with Fye. So
shameless plug.
There you go. Many teachers, including the two of us talking on this podcast, use Twitter to connect with our colleagues, keep informed on developments in education, and even occasionally try to establish ourselves as thought leaders. But recent anticipated changes to Twitter following its takeover by billionaire Elon Musk have caused some educators to reevaluate their relationship with the platform. Recently, EdWeek interviewed several teachers with large Twitter followings to learn whether they will continue to use the website going forward. Some teachers, such as Mark Sass from Colorado, have indicated that they are likely to leave the platform soon, expressing fear that the platform that they use to keep up on education research will be opened up to misinformation and vitriolic speech. Other teachers, such as Pennsylvania's Rachel Poth, intend to stay on the platform, noting that the connections they have made there continue to be valuable. Other teachers are on the fence. One instructor in the article noted that they are willing to wait and see if the platform continues to be enriching for them, but they've also hedged their bets by spending more time building connections on their Discord account just in case. This is an interesting time right now. I can tell you, as a pretty avid Twitter user, it definitely fills a need for me. It is the one place I can go to find a broad swath of folks in the education profession. I do all of my research for big ideas in education by researching articles that I find on Twitter. And so the idea of losing it as a platform, because the platform as we know it could completely change and become a place that's not hospitable, is kind of a sad thought to me. Because for all of Twitter's faults, I tend to hold it in pretty high esteem. And the idea of having to start fresh on a new platform seems a little frightening to me. What do you think about this?
Okay, so I'm play the part of someone who maybe Twitter is less relevant for. And so maybe that is a good thing in the sense that since it hasn't been a huge part of my educational life as an instructor, I may have a different perspective. So bear with me. I'm the first to admit that I have not been a huge Twitter user. I do engage with it when I have things that are really interesting to me, or that, you're one that I know engages a lot with it. So I'll be like, oh, let me go see what Ryan's doing, or other people that I've met in real life or that I know of in real life, and I'll go and check what they're doing on Twitter. I know that's not the majority of us, so I'm just, playing devil's advocate a little bit. But what I do see it as, whether you're somebody who's completely engaged and this is like a devastating, moment of consciousness for you, that you have to, you have a moral crisis that you're like, do I do this? Do I not? Versus someone who may not be a huge user of it, and so it's less consequential for you in a day-to-day aspect, is the idea of how evolutionary all these social medias are, right? All these are social media. The plural of social media might be me. Because I'm thinking of when I first started teaching and having faculty meetings where we were told, do not allow students to follow you on Facebook or your friend, right? It wasn't a follower thing back then. You weren't allowed to let students be your friend on Facebook. And today, if I were to go talk to a group of new teachers and tell them not to let their students be their friend on Facebook, most of them would say to me, what are you talking about? I don't even have Facebook, right? Because the younger generation of teachers, this is not something they care about. This is not something that they're into. So at first it was, before I was a teacher, it was probably MySpace. And then, it was Facebook and Instagram and all sorts of other, Snapchat. You couldn't let anybody see you on Snapchat. That would have been a big problem. And now I think we're looking at how Twitter has been so long established. I think the lifespan of the relevancy of Twitter, because it has been longer than some of these other social media platforms, is causing certain educators and certain people who are, consumers and users of this platform to be a bit frustrated. And I see it personally as, well, we have to evolve with what is being used. And so in my mind, it's like, well, if the life cycle of Twitter, as important as it has been and as prevalent as it is like, if that star is kind of dying, we as educators need to make sure that we're involved in whatever star is rising, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. I have some parallels on this working in the entertainment industry as well, because a lot of artists may be popular on one social media platform, right, and then all of a sudden that platform disappears and they've lost a lot of their followers. Yeah. So to the teachers who are trying to do something in the thought leadership space, they want to be one of these teachers that is well known throughout the world. I think the advice, kind of piggybacking off of what you're saying, the advice to adhere to is, as long as your following is only on a social media platform, be it Facebook or Twitter, you're only renting those followers. And those followers can disappear overnight if a billionaire decides to take over that platform and fundamentally change it. And so if you really want to get into that space, you need to get following in a place that truly belongs to you, such as an email list. That's no email's not going anywhere anytime soon. So the more that wherever your followers are, the more that you can drive at least some of them to a platform that you own, whether it's an email list or a personal website where you have those email addresses. That is a stable following that is not subject to the whims of the changing social media climate and whatever platform is popular this week. And you see it a lot with some of these top teachers are really good with this, right? You go on their website, they say, here, subscribe to my Substack, subscribe to my newsletter, give me your email address, and then they have it, and then that's a fan or that's a follower that teacher has for life. So if all Twitter is for you is just the place where I get education news, yeah, there'll be other platforms that can do that for you.
Right.
But if you are trying to be the teacher as thought leader, give some thought to how you can find platforms or mechanisms to keep your followers so that they don't go away when a platform goes away. And I think email list is really critical for that.
Yeah, and I think even just hearing you say that, I think it's clear that we're talking about two different audiences, right? We're almost talking about two different demographics. So I'm thinking, how to get my students to reach or to connect better. If I'm trying to get them to follow certain things or pay attention to certain things, I have to pay attention then to what audience they are a part of, and they might be a part of the TikTok audience, or they might be a part of another audience, right? And if I'm looking to engage with other educators, what is that audience going to look like? So I think it's an interesting conversation to have, and I'm sure we're not the only ones having it, about what is the next, or where is the next place to have these conversations, and how do we make sure, to a point that you made earlier, how do we make sure that they are true conversations, right? Well, how do we share information in a purer way, for lack of a better term? And spoiler alert, I'm going to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence in a coming episode and what that means for educators. But I think there's a conversation to be had too about how do we make sure that our voices are heard and that we're sharing information well. And that might mean not just what platform we're using, but how does the information get curated, right? How does it get cultivated? Why are you seeing the articles you see and I see the articles I see? We joke a lot on this show about how we don't consult with each other before we come on. And this is now nearly 200 episodes, and Ryan and I have never come to the table with the same content. Isn't that interesting?
Same story, yeah.
Right. So, I don't know. Lots to think about, lots to talk about there.
That is intriguing. And we're excited to have that conversation with all of you. And for the time being, that conversation is still happening for us on Twitter. You can follow us for now at Academica Media.
Who knows if it'll be there when this episode airs.
That's right. You might have to go to Mastodon next week or something. But for now, Twitter at Academica Media with the hashtag Big Ideas in Education. Love to hear your insight on this. Are you staying on Twitter? Or are you heading over to Discord or one of those other platforms? Sarah, always a pleasure. Really enjoyed our conversation this week.
You too, Ryan. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.
The views expressed on the preceding program have been those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Academica, its clients, staff, affiliates, or advertisers.